Today we are going to talk about one of my favorite games of all time. From the physics and precision aiming of Halo 1 to the enormous impact that Halo 2's multiplayer had on console gaming as a whole. Okay, so there is going to be some bias here and there because I absolutely love this game, but I'm going to try to be as objective as possible, right? Alright. Okay, a brief synopsis of the story. There's going to be some light spoilers here and there, so beware. The game starts out on the Pillar of Autumn, a giant space cruiser that's at the point of being in the thick of it. Here we meet two key... get it? Characters. Captain Keyes, our brave pixely space captain, and Cortana, the brave AI babe sorta thing. The Pillar is being chased by the Covenant, a rather aggressive alien race that's out for blood. Human blood. So Keyes and Cortana discuss their defensive possibilities and then decide that it's time for drastic measures. That's where you come in. You play the game as Master Chief, a no-nonsense, badass cyborg and super soldier with a knack for killing alien scum. That sounds like a bad commercial from the 90s, but it's the absolute truth. Master Chief did get more fleshed out as the series progressed, but in 2001 this dude was pretty much a mystery trooper to everyone. I kinda like it that way. Master Chief can speak, but mostly lets his arsenal of weapons do the talking. I feel like Master Chief is sorta the next evolution in the silent protagonist trope that was quite big in the late 90s and early 2000s. He's not a big talker, but he's not a total mute either. From this point onwards, the story starts developing pretty quickly. Keyes decides that he's going to try to land the pillar on this sorta weird ring-shaped installation, and you will do the same thing using one of the few remaining escape pods. Because this is a sci-fi story, and every self-respecting sci-fi story has a life and death scenario revolving around escape pods. And he wants you to make sure that Cortana is safe as well. I really like the dynamic between Cortana and Master Chief. It just works.
Sleep well?
No thanks to your driving, yes.
So you did miss me.
You crash land. No surprises there. Oh yeah, don't get into an escape pod with the Master Chief. Or any vehicle for that matter. You will die.
We're gonna make it, aren't we, sir? I don't want to die out here.
On the installation. This is where the main adventure takes place. The installation is called, cue the music, Halo. Traveling through ancient hallways and across vast green valleys, you fight your way through hordes of varied Covenant troops, trying to save yourself and your scattered human companions. And of course, there's more to this installation than meets the eye. Now, it sounds like I'm riffing on the story, but I'm really not. It's a very well-accomplished sci-fi story. It just has some very funny cliché tropes to it. And it doesn't bother me in the slightest, because the storytelling is excellent here. Most of the voice acting in this game is just great, which really helps to convey the already well-written story.
When we meet the enemy, we will rip their skulls from their spines and toss them away, laughing!
Tana did her best, but we never really had a chance.
With all due respect, sir, this war has enough dead heroes.
This, combined with an excellent presentation and sense of style, gives this game an almost cinematic quality at times, especially for the time. It's really ambitious in its attempt to try and create a bigger lore and universe, and most of the time it succeeds in doing so. Ambition really is the name of the game. Here, because there's something else about this game that's quite ambitious as well. Halo is a pseudo-linear first-person shooter. Let me explain you what that means. In Stage 2 you are the sole survivor of the escape pod crash. The Covenant is closing in while some Banshees, Covenant shuttles, are flying overhead. There are two things you can do in this scenario. You can run for the hills and plan your escape, or actually ambush the Covenant yourself and take them to task for killing your comrades. It's a nice introduction into Halo's combat, because a lot of times there's more than one option or approach to take down your enemies. Will you get behind the wheel of a Warthog, sort of a sci-fi Humvee, to face your enemies head on, or will you snipe them down from a distance? There's even the option to implement a little bit of stealth here and there. The possibilities are not endless by any means, but they are quite varied and open-ended for a game from 2001. Also, each stage is massive, which doesn't hurt your options either. If you compare this style of gameplay to a game like, let's say, Medal of Honor Frontline, a first-person shooter that launched in the same year, Halo seems a lot, and I do mean a lot less linear. No hate by the way, I actually fucking love this game. This sort of open-ended way of playing a game, paired with the very intelligent AI of your enemies, especially on higher difficulties, makes for a very unique and satisfying experience. If you take a different approach, chances are you're going to get a different reaction from your enemies. This makes Halo a very replayable game. On the subject of your enemies, there are a few different enemy types, and they all have their own distinct features. The most basic Covenant Trooper is the Grunt. They are short, kinda cowardly creatures that flee when they tend to get outnumbered, or when you kill their commanding officer. They can be quite lethal in larger groups though, especially in higher difficulties. Then there are Jackals. Shielded warriors that try to outflank you and use their charged blasters to take down your shield. They suck at close combat though, so it's really effective to just smash their faces in. Or blowing them up, which is also a lot of fun. You can also bypass the shield by aiming for the little hole on the left or right side of it. It's very satisfying to pull off actually. Let's not forget about the elites. Oh boy, are there a lot of them. Basic elites, elite elites, stealth elites, elites with swords. Well, you get the picture. They are quite a competent foe, and you will find yourself grinding your teeth more than once while going toe-to-toe with these fast and furious and hunters. Basically walking tanks. I really enjoy fighting these dudes. They are heavy armored, they are slow, but they can sprint short distances. They are very dangerous at pretty much any range, but flanking them and taking them down is super satisfying. I left out one enemy type, and I did that on purpose. More on that later. Each enemy takes a totally different approach to defeat, so when the game groups them together, it gets a lot more strategic and exciting. You have to think on your feet, because the split-second decision can mean the difference between life and death. And of course, it also depends on the type of weapon you're using. Let's talk about Halo's arsenal, because it's quite special. Most of Halo's weapons are just awesome. Much like the enemies, they all have their own strengths and weaknesses, and again, making the right split-second decision at the right time can really tip the battle in your favor. You can also only carry 2 weapons at the same time, which adds a really nice strategic depth to Halo's gameplay. You have to choose, and you have to choose wisely. Let's start with Halo's best weapon by far, the pistol. Yeah, I'm not kidding. This thing is massively overpowered. Just ask the friends I used to play local multiplayer with. And it has a scope too. Like, how does that even... Also, grenades. Halo's grenades are just fucking great. Human grenades are fast and lethal. The alien grenades are a bit slower, but can stick to vehicles and enemies. Landing a sticky grenade throw on one of your enemies never gets old. Honestly, never. Then you have your standard assault rifle, shotgun, rocket launcher, but there's also an entire alien arsenal to choose from. These weapons handle quite differently from their human counterparts, and again, have their own strengths and weaknesses. I never used them either though, does anybody really? I mean, come on, look at the thing. Pretty much every weapon feels very satisfying to use because of the sense of weight and mass this game has. Now, I can't quite put my finger on it, beyond the fact that the physics engine is quite impressive for a game from 2001. There's a speed and rhyme and reason behind every weapon and enemy that just really makes a lot of sense to me. And those of you who played a lot of Halo games probably know what I'm talking about. Yeah, I know it's not a very technical analysis, but it's the truth. When you get attacked by a hunter, for instance, you feel its weight. It's especially noticeable when you drive in some of Halo's vehicles, mostly and maybe a little bit too much when you're driving in the Warthog. I swear, this thing just wants to roll over by default. But let's not gloss over these vehicles, because they are pretty cool. We've established that there are Warthogs, but there's also Covenant vehicles you can command, like Banshees. Oh yeah, there's a tank, and man, is it overpowered. You can just plow through hordes of enemies with this thing. Infantry? No problem. Other tanks? No problem. Banshees? Forget about it. The tank fucks everybody's shit up. It's a shame that you don't get to use it more often. To be honest, you don't get to use anything outside of the Warthog for the better part of the game, but when you do get to use the other vehicles, you will not be disappointed. It also doesn't hurt that the levels are this big. Some parts can be conquered on foot, but are way more fun in a vehicle. And the fact that a lot of the time both options are pretty viable seems remarkable to me. Especially, again, for the time. Back in 2001, this was one of the prettiest games on the market, no doubt about it. The huge backdrops, the vast open areas. Also the fact that you can actually see the ring. I mean, like, come on, this was so impressive. Oh my god, and the way light reacts to different surfaces, this absolutely blew my mind back in the day. It's also a very colorful game, especially for a first-person shooter, a genre known for overutilizing drab colors to look edgy and cool. The character design is also excellent. The Marines are sorta cool, nothing you haven't seen in Starship Troopers before. Now the Covenant, that's where it's at. They just look so distinctive and colorful and are filled to the brim with little details. Again, for the time. Their ships, vehicles and weapons also match this style really well. And they look very distinctive compared to the more industrial and minimalistic human designs. Graphically speaking, I think the Covenant models aged pretty well. The human models, well, yes and no. And let's be fair here, this is an old game, so you should expect it to look, well, old. But cutscenes like this made me go, you know what, 2001 is quite a long time ago. It's a very rare feeling to run into while playing this game though. Overall, it's a game that's cleverly designed around the Xbox hardware limitations, and it shows. It's sorta cool, not the best aspect of this game though. As much as I praise the game for being as big as it is, it tends to get a little bit disorienting now and again. Some maps are huge, for the sake of being huge it seems. And that tends to mess with the pacing of your game. Some stages drag out for way too long. You know who you are, library. And have you traversing the same eye-looking hallways again and again and again, it gets cumbersome at times. Just for the record, there are some very well-crafted maps here, the Silent Cartographer, for example. But there are also very crappy ones, like the Two Betrayals, and oh god, I hate this map. These arrows point you in the wrong direction, and then they don't, and it's beyond me. I find myself getting lost in this map again and again, even after finishing the game a billion times. Okay, since I brought up the library, I think it's time to address the elephant in the room. Or flood in the room? Yes? No? The flood. I'm sorta torn on this subject. I mean, for the sake of diversity in gameplay, it sorta makes sense to introduce a totally new enemy type halfway through the game. But it's just not as much fun as fighting the Covenant in my opinion. Not bad and definitely challenging, but not as much fun. The flood pretty much depends on Zerg rushing you, and this gets a little tedious at times. The game throws hordes and hordes of these guys at you, sometimes armed with ranged weaponry, and they are surprisingly accurate given the fact that they hold the gun sideways. Especially on higher difficulties, this leads to a lot of deaths. Very cheap, unsatisfying deaths. Give me a break. After the introduction of the flood, which is told through a found helmet cam Blair Witch style, which is just really cool and very unique for the time as far as I know.
Right, well, let's get this door open.
I'll try, sir, but it looks like these Covenant worked pretty hard to lock it down.
The game really picks up the pace and it's over not very long after that. But my god, are those last hours tasty. This place is going down and it's going down fast. In a matter of hours, you've been through a flood-infected Covenant cruiser, the wreckage of your own ship, the Pillar of Autumn. You've seen the flood go toe-to-toe with the Covenant, which is awesome. Then you rig the Autumn's hyperdrive core in a boss battle-y kind of way and escape the facility Indiana Jones style just in time before it blows to smithereens. It's epic in every sense of the word and a worthy conclusion to such a big adventure. You really feel a turning of the tide as the Covenant slowly realizes that the flood is more than they can handle. They're the ones that set it free by accident. And at times you find yourself in situations where you almost feel a sense of empathy for your old enemies as they desperately try to survive with their backs against the wall. Epic really is the right word for it. And then there's the ending cutscene that hints that there's going to be a sequel. Hard. That's it for Halo 1 Combat Evolved. There's also the multiplayer aspect to look into, but I'm not too familiar with playing Halo 1 online. I did, however, spend many nights playing local co-op or versus games with friends. Just staying up all night, binge eating pizza and playing Halo until our eyes felt sore beyond any measure. Good times. So does Halo Combat Evolved hold up? Well, let's be real here. Yeah, it does. I threw it away and I don't know where it went. Yeah, the level design has its flaws and some of the character designs didn't age all that well. But this is a great and well-made game if I ever saw one. The story is great, the weapons are cool and feel great to use, and the enemy AI is actually very smart. You will not be disappointed if you play this game for the first time. Or if you replay it after you haven't played it for a while. And try to play the PC version if you can. It's the superior version. Trust me. Why? higher frame rates, higher resolutions, and aiming with a mouse. And that's pretty much it for Halo Combat Evolved. Stick around if you want to hear my favorite voiceover blooper, and I'll see you on the next one. It's armed with ranged sometimes armed with ranged, sometimes armed with... Okay, fuck it. Fuck it.